Text Chapter 1 of Jin Yucheng's novel Flowers. 1. A Bao is 10 years old and his neighbor Betty is 6 years old. Two people climbed up from the fall's third floor to the roof. The tiles were warm. They saw half of Luwan District, Xiangshan Road in front, Boxing Park in the east, and north in the east. They saw a corner of the grandfather's single-family house, and Gaolan in the rear to the west. The Nicholas Orthodox Church was built by Russian expatriates in the 1930s. It is said to commemorate the execution of the Soviet Tsar, Nicholas II. During the thunder and lightning stage, it is eerie and scary, but it is more eye-catching under the sun. Betty tightened her grip on a bough, her little body leaning against him, her hair flying. The southeast wind is strong, and the boats on the Huangpu River can be heard, and the broad buzzing of the French horns soothes the hearts of young people. A bough said to Betty, "Good girl, go down." Xiaoxing's grandma said you are not allowed to climb on the roof. Betty tightened her grip on Po and said, "Let me see again." Xiaoxing grandma is the worst. A bough said. "Yes," Betty said, "I'll be good." A bough touched Betty's head and said, "Go down and play the piano." Betty said, "Got it." This conversation is a Bao's eternal memory. This is the house that Abao's parents rented before liberation. Betty lives on the ground floor. It also has 3 rooms, with a piano in the big room. The Xiaoxing grandmother who works as a maid is a vegetarian and cooks meat dishes well. She doesn't try the saltiness in the oil wok. Grandma likes Betty. Every time Betty was unhappy, Grandma said, "Let me tell you a story." Betty said, "Don't listen, don't listen." Grandma said, "For example, there was a big old man in Laozaodi." Betty said, "It's the eldest man again." Grandma said that if the eldest man was not careful, bad guys would come and steal his heart. The eldest man had no idea. When he was walking on the street in the market, he saw an old woman selling vegetables. Betty smiled and said, the old man stopped and asked, "What side dishes do you have?" The old woman said, "Sir, all styles are available here." Grandma said. The old man asked, "What kind of dish is this?" The old woman said, "Spinach." The old man said that if you don't care about food, how can you live without it? The old woman said that the master is longevity, and if he is careless, he can live, but if he is careless, he will die soon. When the master heard this, his chest suddenly hurt, blood flowed from all 7 holes, and his pigtails stood up on the spot. Betty covered her ears and said, "Got it. I've heard it." Grandma said, "Dear girl, why do you have to throw everything into the toilet?" Betty said nothing. Grandma said that the doll was bought by my mother, and when she threw it into the toilet, the rice-filled total feces would come out. Betty said nothing. Grandma said that if you play the piano well, you must also be good at other things and have a conscience. Betty said nothing. After dinner, the sound of Betty's piano came upstairs. Sometimes the music stopped and Betty was heard crying. Bao Nying said, "The old country lady on the ground floor has a really bad temper." Bao's father said, "Stop talking about rural, urban, and exploitative class ideas." Bao Nying said, "Little girl, you should have good habits since childhood, especially in Shanghai." Bao's father didn't answer. Bao Nying said, "How could Xiaoxing's grandma know how to make the inside and outside thick and thin at the same time?" Bao's father said that in the old society, the maids were maids upstairs and the aunties with big feet were downstairs. Bao Nying didn't make any sound. Bao's father said, "Don't talk about the old social affairs." Betty's father brought back a rabbit from the research institute one day. Betty was happy, but Xiaoxing's grandma was not happy. Because the supply was tight, it was getting harder and harder to buy side dishes. Grandma wouldn't let the rabbits enter the room and only allowed the rabbits to eat weeds in the small garden. On Sunday, Betty pulled the leaves from the basket and let the rabbit eat them. Betty said to the rabbit, "Little rabbit, eat quickly, Grandma is coming." Rabbits are psychic and eat quickly. Every time Grandma comes over, she has already eaten all the food. Later, the rabbit dug a hole in the mud. Betty held some chicken lettuce, placed it at the entrance of the hole and said, "Little rabbit, hurry up and eat." Grandma is coming soon. One day Grandma rushed over and said, Betty, Betty, how many side dishes are there every day? Grandma grabbed the vegetable leaves and dragged Betty into the kitchen. Betty cried and just ate, putting the vegetables in Grandma's bowl. Grandma said that after eating vegetables, her little teeth will become whiter. Betty said, Don't be vain. Grandma didn't say anything but ate the vegetable stems and pressed the vegetable leaves into Betty's bowl. Betty still cried. Grandma said, Wait until Grandma extirpates her body before we cry in mourning and eat quickly. Betty cried and ate. A bow said, Betty, Grandma is also a rabbit. Betty said, What? Po said that Po was just like a rabbit, a vegetarian. Betty said, Grandma is bad. Grandma said, I'm very happy with Betty. Betty said that yesterday, my mother bought the vegetable wrappers that Grandma ate. Later, Grandma went to dig out her throat and dug out all the food. Grandma said, Yes, I'm old and my nose is not working properly. When I eat it, I feel that the stuffing contains meat and fat, which is really embarrassing. Betty said, I was so happy. Grandma said, Dear girl, I am no longer useful and I am going to die soon. Betty said, Why is Grandma a vegetarian? Grandma said, I raised my little girl at that time, and the fortune teller said that the horoscopes were the best. Grandma was a tiger, and my little girl was a dragon. She was going to fight evil spirits. Grandma became a vegetarian from then on, and accumulated good deeds. Unexpectedly, the little girl died. A bow touched Betty's head. Grandma said, Well, vegetarian food can be harmful to people. Back then, Biggin, a high-ranking official, rode a tall white horse into the small vegetable market and took a few laps. Betty smiled. Grandma said that when she saw an old mother selling vegetables, a senior official said, Mom, what kind of food do you have? My old mother said that there are two kinds of side dishes in the world, cabbage without cabbage and cabbage with cabbage. The official smiled. The old mother said that I was in the side vegetable business, and cabbage was called closed leaf, cabbage was called wrapped heart, and evergreen, and celery was commonly known as water-soaked flour. The high official tightened the reins, and made no sound. The old mother said that bean sprouts, grass heads, and purple horn leaves are considered spinach. I've never heard of it from a senior official. The old mother said that there is a kind of vegetable called water spinach, which is water spinach. You know. The high officials were silent. The old mother said that this tall white horse had hooves bigger than the rice bowl. She asked what kind of food the horse wanted to eat. The official patted the white horse and said, Yes. What do you want to eat? Betty said at this moment. Mama eats carrots and chicken feathers. Grandma smiled and picked vegetables in her hands. Next to the gas stove in the kitchen, on the black and white mosaic floor, there was half a basket of Amita mustard greens. Grandma was preparing to make red barbecue vegetables, Abao said. Amitabha mustard greens are not considered spinach. Grandma smiled and said, Big an official. When he heard the 4 words Amitabha mustard, he clutched his heart and vomited blood. The blood dripped on the back of the white horse. He suddenly fell down and died. Betty said that the little rabbit was going to die too. Grandma said, Yes. Betty said that the weeds in the garden have been eaten up. Grandma hugged Betty tightly and said, Good girl. You can't take care of the rabbit anymore. You can only take care of your own family and eat at home. Betty began to cry. Grandma didn't make any sound. Not a single car could be heard passing nearby. Grandma patted Betty and said, You are a little person like a vegetable seedling. You are growing up little by little. Be good, keep your eyes closed. Betty remained silent and closed her eyes tightly. Grandma said that in the early morning, there was an old man. His real name was Wang Anyi. He was a lazy man. He didn't know how to do anything. He only knew how to sing birds. One day, a crane jumped on the green pine tree and said to the old man, Ganji is long. Ganji is long. The old man walked to the door and asked what the matter was. The crane said, There is a sheep on the top of Nanshan Mountain. Let me eat the meat, and I will eat the intestines. The old man was so happy that he climbed to the top of Nanshan Mountain and ate several bowls of mutton without letting the crane eat any of it. One day, a bird called the emperor jumped on the reed and said, "Ganji is long, Ganji is long." The old man walked to the door and asked, chirping, "What happened?" "Ask the emperor to tell you that there is a sheep on the top of Baishan mountain. He eats the meat and I eat the intestines." The elder was so happy that he ran to Baishan and brought back half a pile of mutton, refusing to let the emperor eat it at all. One day, Shaoxing grandma was talking and filming, and Beatty stopped moving, and her little hand slipped down. Not a sound could be heard from Sinan Road. Grandma said that in the 5th round, a phoenix jumped on the sycamore tree, and Betty had already swallowed it. Grandma had a habit of telling stories in turn, which made Po unknowingly. His body became lighter and time slowed down. 2. The location of Husheng's home is a bungalow on Maoming Road. His parents are Air Force cadres. They actively responded to the new social development, private primary schools, and enrolled Husheng. Therefore, the place where Husheng's primary school classes were held for 6 years was located in Tongjian, Fuxing Middle Road. The living room of Shikumen on Rujin Road, the living room of a bungalow on Maoming South Road, the wing room on Changle Road, the Changle Post Neighborhood Committee Warehouse, the car room of a bungalow in an alley on Nanchang Road, the Chinese table tennis cradle, and the back room of the old alley opposite Julu Road No. 1 primary school. This area was close to Abao's activity area, but the two of them didn't recognize it. Every semester, Shanghai students move to several classroom locations and take Chinese and arithmetic classes with several different teachers. They are used to go in and out of alleys, doing gymnastics and running. At the peak of schooling in the 1950s, Shanghai women were proficient in writing, could write with chalk, and liked to sing, dance, and play the organ. They could serve as private teachers, young ladies, all dance, Mrs. Zhang, Mrs. Li, eldest sister-in-law, little mother-in-law, etc. Actively support education, including giving up private housing for education. There is a teacher Zhang, who always wears a colorful cheongsam, with a colorful handkerchief tucked in the front, and is full of fragrance. This is the landlady on Rujin Road. She gives up her living room for classes. Every cloudy day, she is reluctant to turn on the light. The room is extremely dark, both inside and outside the patio. There is a coal stove, cattail leaf fans snapping, water dripping from the floor. There are 3 seats, and umbrellas are allowed, like Zhang Leping's San Mao reading picture. Shanghai students are not surprised, thinking that primary school should be like this. Usually during the 3rd period of class, the smell of cooking oil floats from the stove. Teacher Zhang puts down the chalk, walks out of class, and chats with the aunt next door. She often picks up a piece of fried hairtail or heavy old 5-spice vegetarian chicken and turns in, eat and teach at the same time. Students who do not perform well can stay and go back with teacher Zhang. That is, go to the back room and write. One time, a Shanghai student wrote until it was dark. Teacher Zhang had forgotten about it. When he realized it, he came in and picked up the Shanghai student's ear and said, "Hey, let's go to eat first. From now on, be good in class and listen." One time was Huang Mishan. The Shanghai student followed him to the back room. Teacher Zhang took off his vest and briefs, took out a round fan, and fanned all over his body. A male classmate said that Teacher Zhang's hair is very dense. A female classmate said that the weather was too hot and she had to write a few new words. Teacher Zhang brought in a basin of water and stood next to me to wipe herself. Teacher Zhang said, "What are you looking at? Write quickly." In the 2nd grade, Shanghai students moved to an old alley on Changle Road to study. Once they went back with Teacher Zhu and were forced to write. Teacher Zhu entered the room, first changed clothes, opened the cupboard, combed her hair, looked in the mirror, listened to the radio, ate plums, and then cut her toenails. Husheng was writing until dusk, and Teacher Zhu came in from next door to watch Husheng write. Husheng raised his head and saw a man next to Teacher Zhu. He was very close, and he also stretched his head to take a look. Teacher Zhu has taken off her glasses. Her fragrance is overflowing. Her spring crepe peach and jade clothes are wet. She has taken off her lipstick. Her skin is pink and tender, and she has a different face. Teacher Zhu touched He Sheng's head and said, "Go back and be careful when crossing the road." He Sheng closed the pencil box, took the book cover and said, "Goodbye, Teacher Zhu." After saying this, the man reached out and pinched Teacher Zhu's butt. Teacher Zhu snorted and twisted and said, "What are you doing? In front of my students? Teach them well." He Sheng remembers that only Teacher Wang, who lived in the alley opposite the ticket office of Lyceum Theater Art Theater, always wore simple faux clothes. He still looked the same when he came home. His shirt was snow white, and he sat upright opposite He Sheng, watching He Sheng's work. As soon as you draw the title, pour a glass of cold water. Teacher Wang said that if you don't do your homework now, you won't be able to participate in revolutionary work in the future. Good luck. Don't be a deserter. In the first semester of 3rd grade, students from Shanghai go to classes on Maoming South Road. In an independent villa hall with a large Western-style antler chandelier. Teacher Song is from Shanghai, but just came from the north. Once after school, Teacher Song dragged He Sheng and walked towards Nanchang Road, past Rujin Road, and turned at Sinan Road. Teacher Song said that the classmates in the class called Shanghai students Mr. Ni. What did it mean? He Sheng is silent. Teacher Song said, "Tell it." He Sheng said, "I don't know." Teacher Song said that the teacher really couldn't understand the names of Shanghai's people. Shanghai students say that the defeated cricket is called Mr. Ni by Shanghaians. Teacher Song said nothing. He Sheng said that if you fight again for the second time, you will usually lose. Teacher Song said, "This means that the students from Shanghai do not want to struggle anymore." He Sheng said, "Yes." Teacher Song said it was too unpleasant to hear. He Sheng said that it was Teacher Huang who took it. Teacher Song said that Teacher Huang's father kept this kind of bug every year for gambling. It is said that the police station has registered him. He Sheng is silent. Teacher Song said that it was really inappropriate to give nicknames to classmates casually. He Sheng said, "It doesn't matter." Teacher Song said that students born in Shanghai are willing to be failures and timid bugs. He Sheng said, "Yes." Teacher Song said that he didn't feel embarrassed. He Sheng said, "Yes." Teacher Song said, "I feel embarrassed." He Sheng said, "It doesn't matter." Teacher Song said that he was not at all sad about skipping school because of the red light in exams. He Sheng is silent. Teacher Song said, "Don't be afraid of failure, be brave." He Sheng is silent. Teacher Song said, "Promise to the teacher." He Sheng is silent. Teacher Song said, "Tell it." He Sheng said that no matter how brave the cricket is, no matter how sharp its teeth are, in the end of the fight, they will still lose and die. And so will humans. Teacher Song sighed and said, "This little guy, so young, so powerful. You want to make the teacher angry, right?" Teacher Song dragged the student away and said, "You must do your homework seriously, please listen." He Sheng said, "Yes." At this moment, the two of them stopped talking and turned to Sinan Road. They were covered in green shade, there were few pedestrians, and the wind was cool. Then, they met Bo and Betty head-on. This was the first time the three of them met. At that time, Bo was in 6th grade and Betty was in 1st grade. Bo greeted Teacher Song and said, "Kiss bitch bitch." Teacher Song said, "Get out of class is over." Bo nodded and introduced. "This is my neighbor Betty," Teacher Song said. "Follow me to Sinan Road to see Grandpa." Bo said, "I won't go," Teacher Song said. "Just sit down and leave." Bo didn't make any sound. Teacher Song said, "This is my student He Sheng." Teacher Song pulled Lala from Shanghai. The two looked at each other and walked into a large 3-story house on Sinan Road. A black Austin car was parked in the car park. 3 generations live in this house, including Abo's grandfather and uncle. The newly moved bitch is Teacher Song, who was transferred back to Shanghai with her husband Huang Heli and temporarily lives in a room on the 2nd floor. Everyone enters the living room. 3 or 4 young men and women on the stairs look down coldly, with alert eyes and no words. Bo chatted with his grandfather for a few words. Betty said to He Sheng, "I like butterflies." "What does He Sheng like?" He Sheng said, "Me. I can't think of it." Later, Teacher Song took He Sheng to the workers' room next to the garden, where there was an 8 immortals table and stools. He Sheng began to write. Not long after, Bao and Betty came in. Betty said, "What do Shanghai students like?" Yucheng said that he likes to write. Betty whispered, "I hate writing." Bao asked, "Does Teacher Song know how to teach?" Yucheng is silent. Betty said, "My name is Betty, and I hate doing arithmetic." Yucheng smiled. One day a few months later, Yucheng met Bo and Betty on the road, and the three of them were officially dating. Bo likes to watch movies, and Betty likes to collect movie manuals. Shanghai students are not afraid of queuing. One morning, Yucheng went to buy tickets. Cathay Cinema was pre-selling the new film Moyata, and the queue stretched to the corridor on the side of Jinjiang Hotel. The student from Shanghai held the egg bread wrapped in wax paper and lined up behind a student of the same age. This man has a hairless mouth and strong shoulders. He lowers his head and reads a copy of Pangongan. Yucheng struck up a conversation and asked what time the sales would start. Xiao Mao said, "What time is it now?" Yucheng is silent. Not many people had watches. Yucheng left the team and went to the front to ask what the hour was. He came back and said, "It was 7:15. Xiao Mao said that only women would enjoy this kind of movie. Yucheng said that each person is limited to 4 tickets. Xiao Mao said, "I will buy 2. Yucheng said, "I bought 6, but 2 were missing." The little fur doesn't make a sound. The promenade is full of people, and life in Shanghai is boring. Xiao Mao turned around at this moment and pointed to a passage in the book for Shanghai students to read. It was in traditional Chinese characters, Dai Li Jun, Rol Yan Shimi, Nijing Gong Jia Shin, Si Stick Hand Feng Hue. The sky is full of anger. The river stands on the spot rolling along the river, the black hero with a quick axe, the strong lion with a shaking neck, and the hydrocarbon rush with a spear, Yucheng said. This is like water margin. Xiao Mao said that ancient people were full of heroes. Yucheng said, "It is more awkward. When a regular general fights, the flag has a simple word. Cao Cao is Cao and Guan Gong is Guan." The two chatted for a few words and exchanged names, so they recognized each other. The team started to move. Xiao Mao rolled up his book, stuffed it into his trouser pocket and said, "I bought 2 and that's enough." Yucheng said, "Buy the other 2 for me." Xiao Mao agreed. The two ate the crust, bought tickets, and headed north together until they reached the intersection of Changle Road and parted ways. Across the road is the Dixon Commercial Building, a high-end shop built decades later. At the moment, it is just a cement 3-dimensional parking garage, and a Yoyi brand light blue bus drives out of the garage. Yucheng said that there are 2 departments in Shanghai dedicated to receiving high-level foreign guests. The two stood in admiration. Xiao Mao's family lived in Huxi Dazhangzhang, and Yucheng had moved with his parents to that apartment on Shimen Road. The two parties left each other's addresses and said goodbye. Yucheng bought 6 tickets, 3 for his parents and brother Yucheng, and the other 3 for Bo and Betty. Yucheng waved, walked past the large 12th night drama poster at the Langson Theater, and left heading north. 3. Xiao Mao bought the 2 tickets on behalf of Yin Feng, the bride on the 2nd floor, a new henboy and a crew member of an ocean-going shipping company. The young couple watched this movie. Haid will go to sea for more than half a year. Xiao Mao passed through the verdant flower garden on Changle Road, looking around, but couldn't see what Yucheng said about an old man with a long beard, the famous painter Feng Zikai. Exiting the entrance of Shaanxi Road, on the right-hand side is the No. 21st station. This is the route indicated by Yucheng. Xiao Mao was satisfied because he had eaten bread crust for the first time. When the tram arrived at Changshu Road, Xiao Mao got off and saw the tram continue to go north, leaving like bread crust, taking away the smell of buttery vanilla. Nearby is Kaozi Bang, which goes all the way to the north, to the west of Yaoshui Lane, and ends near the Suzhou River. This is a territory that Xiao Mao is familiar with. The day before, Xiao Mao had gone to a nearby stall and bought a brand of cigarettes. In the past, old-fashioned cigarettes came with a kind of advertising flower card. Each card had a picture. It could be collected in sets and you could bet on winning or losing. After the cigarette factory was state-run, the brand was cancelled, and Xiao Mao the stall specializes in imitation products. 6K is a large card, containing 30 small cards. In the card fighting method, Xiaonan, a cigarette brand, is placed front to the ground. Xiaonan holds up a card and slaps it on the ground next to brand A. In Shanghai dialect, it is called scraping. The cigarette brand use the force of the airflow to scrape it off. If the scraping causes the card next to it to turn over and face up, it will belong to party B. During this process, the card must be flat and adhered to the point of being seamless to avoid turning over. The B card must be slightly bent to facilitate the wrapping. More airflow, more power. So in the hands of the Shanghai alley girl, there is a stack of cigarette brands. Pulling out and in, constantly bending, smoothing, over and over again, tied with rubber bands. And there are olive stones and other hard things in the trouser pockets. Things are easy to wear and tear. Xiaomao bought a big 108 Generals of the Water Margin series. At a certain stage, there was an extra one of Tian Kuixing Hu Bao Yi Songjiang. Tian Bao star two-headed snake Jizhen, and Earth Sui star Tongji Pu. Health has always been in short supply, so prepare to collect it before making plans. At the bottom of Shikong Road, there is a pedestrian bridge. On the opposite side of the river, there is the pier of the Shangliang warehouse. Barges stocked with rice, wheat, and 6-grain flour dock every day. It is said that there are several boats loaded with them. It is filled with refined white flour and specializes in making butter bread crust. Food is in short supply recently. Whenever a barge arrives, male and female boat people on both sides of the Taiwan Strait immediately run towards the iron stilt foot of the dock. The iron stilt is a phoenix with a clear signal. The boat people specialize in collecting food scraps, grains, wheat, beans, and 6-grain flour. I carry a small broom with me and spread newspapers on the ground, which is like a bird. When the phoenix of the crane moves, hundreds of birds worship. When the picket shouts, everyone flies away and then gathers round. Barbershop Master Wang talks about the northern Jiangsu dialect. Shake the 6-grain flour carefully to make the sand and mud sink. Add some chopped green onions, and you can spread the pancakes. It takes a little effort. It doesn't matter. You don't need to buy the effort with money. It's a blessing. Xiaomao, my mother said. Yes, the human intestines are like rubber bands. They can be thick or thin. They can be stretched or shortened. Back then, the Orientals blocked the potion shop and imprisoned the refugees from northern Jiangsu in straw sandals. They were so hungry that their eyes turned green. Everyone scrapes bran off the ground of a flour mill, which is equivalent to eating mud. And some people eat oxdong grass by the Suzhou River, which poisons people and makes them hungry every day. Master Wang said, well, it's pitiful. I was ordered to block the one for half a month, and more than 10 people would pull up their tails, collect corpses, and drag people to death every day. Little Mao Niang said, now it is difficult again. It doesn't matter. I am determined to mount Tation, and bought a large steel bell pot to save food. Every day, we use yellow and brown rice to cook porridge, and everyone eats a few more bowls. Master Wang is silent. The situation is like this. In the big self-ringing bell alley, except for the bourgeois master's wife, every household eats porridge, and eats potato flour and 6-grain flour. Xiaomao's family lived in a 3-story pavilion. There was a golden portrait of the leader posted above the chest of drawers. Before the whole family ate, Xiaomao Niang raised her hand and said, slow down, boil the porridge and use the side dishes, let it cool down before eating. Everyone is silent. The little Mao Niang moved to the chest of drawers, clasped her hands, and prayed softly, I beg the leader, listen to my voice. Some people say that after cooking thin porridge for 3 years, I can buy a cow. This is a lie. I am not a money addict. Now I am hungry. I don't want others to see that I am hungry. The leader can see it and will repay me. Please rescue me and make me clear-sighted. Everyone is silent. Then, Xiaomao Niang sat down and the whole family ate porridge. On the ground floor of Xiaomao's house is a barber shop in the alley. The shop is long and narrow, with an aisle on the left and a row of 5 old-fashioned barber chairs on the right. It is always full of customers. Xiaomao stepped into the store, and the familiar smell of soap, talcum powder, and diamond hair wax surrounded him. The radio played Panfu Sofu, followed by the Jianghui Opera. During the first watch, there was a bright moon on the flower stand. and the oil seller was sitting in a brothel, looking at a girl with a skirt and a hairpin. I thought she was a good household. The woman of this family is ah. When Master Wang saw Xiao Mao come in, he spoke in Subei dialect and said he was home. Xiao Mao said, "Yes." Master Wang pulled out a towel and said, "Come and wipe your face." Xiao Mao went over and asked Master Wang to wipe his face. Master Wang adjusted the electric planer, followed the back of the customer's neck, and slowly pushed it upward. Master Li spoke in northern Jiangsu dialect. "Xiao Mao, the briquette stove is out. Go and make 2 bottles of Wenjin." Xiao Mao carried 2 bamboo shell bottles and went to Liu Huzhao next door, in the barber shop. Boiling water is called Wenjin, a stool is called shutting body, soap is called sliding, a basin is called moon by Master Zhang, braiding a woman's hair is called putting strips, and picking out ears is called the guy who dug his ears was called little green guy. The razor was called King Fang, and the razor cloth was called Qi Fang. I remember one day, Xiao Mao made 3 bottles of hot water and came in. Master Zhang spoke in northern Jiangsu dialect and Xiao Mao came over. The little fur doesn't make a sound. Master Li twists a lazy, which is a hot hand towel, and warms the customer's face in preparation for shaving. Master Zhang said, "Xiao Mao, come here." Xiao Mao said, "What to do?" Master Zhang said, "Come here, come here." Master Zhang cuts the hair of a woman with good fortune. Xiao Mao came closer and said, "What are you doing?" The Fuxiang woman moved her seat and said slowly, "Xiao Mao." Master Zhang whispered, "Good things are coming." The lucky woman said, "Xiao Mao is here." Xiao Mao took a look and saw that it was Master Fu from the alley. Xiao Mao said, "Master, Fu Shitai talked about Subai." Xiao Mao and Ahua took the no 20 for tram. Xiao Mao said, "What is Master doing?" The master lowered his voice and said word by word, "At 6:30 tomorrow morning, help me take the no 20 for bus to the red house where he died." Okay. The little fur doesn't make a sound. Mrs. Fu said that she would not treat Xiao Mao badly, and she would help. Line up early in the morning and receive 2 life-saving dining tickets. Master Zhang said that on Sunday, if he had nothing to do, he would go for a run. The teacher's wife said that she would go to the red house, where people die tomorrow to have lunch. In today's society where people die, to have a meal, one has to line up at the door of the hotel early in the morning and first receive the food ticket. If I can't get the ticket to die, I won't be able to eat if I die. It's really a sin. Xiao Mao said that the master wanted to eat Western food and asked me to line up first. Master Tai said, "Yes, good girl." Xiao Mao said, "I will tell my mother first." Master Zhang cut his hair and said, "What are you talking about? As a person, you must be flexible." Teacher Tai said, "If you can talk, just talk diligently." Teacher Tai, "I will pay my dear girl the hard-earned money. 1 piece, plus the money for the round trip, to 7 cents. It is a dime. $1 and a dime. My dear girl, buy something sweet and salty to eat." Okay. Master Zhang stopped and said, "Mom and Dad, we worked the morning shift and left early. I don't know." Xiao Mao said, "There are more people." The teacher's wife said, "Go and line up at 7 o'clock. There are about 10 people who have died, and each person will receive 2. The teacher's wife will come to the door of the hotel to get it at 10:30. And you must wait for me." Okay, Xiao Mao said. Okay, the master said, "Young and old, don't bully anyone. Now, Xiao Mao, please take 5 dimes as a deposit." The white cloth sheet was stuffed in a cold and narrow bag, and the teacher's wife took out a 5-cent bill. Xiao Mao took it and said, "Okay." Master Wang said, "Hey, bang, stir-fry leeks and green onions." "My mother." Xiao Mao said, "What to do?" Master Wang said, "I am dying. I am getting rich." Xiao Mao, "I am prosperous. My boy, for a whole week, I only gave him 1 penny in pocket money." Xiao Mao, "Help the master give birth to a briquette stove." Xiao Mao put his 5-corner pocket in his pocket, grabbed the newspaper and cattail leaf fan, carried the coal stove and walked outside the back door. He couldn't help singing a popular ditty. Uncle Grandpa on the 2nd floor leaned out of the window and said, "Xiao Mao, how many times have I told you that coal stoves are not allowed here? Carry it farther." The little fur doesn't make a sound. I heard the lady on the second floor ask, "What are you doing?" My uncle said that these shaved turtles, red guys, are the most rubbish, and they specialize in using stupid little girls to do their work. The lady on the second floor said, "Ah, what is there to talk about? If you mind your own business, you will eat shit." Xiao Mao picked up the briquette stove. The lady on the second floor poked her silver face out of the window upstairs and said in a sweet voice, "Xiao Mao, you sang so well. Your auntie sang so well that her saliva came out, and the gluttonous worms crawled out. All of them are good side dishes for the New Year's Eve dinner. Well, 2 cold basins for hot stir fries, 1 casserole, and some snacks. Thumbs up." See, Po has an older brother who went to Hong Kong. He was given away since he was a child and has basically no contact with him. But one day, Bao unexpectedly received a letter from his brother, written in traditional Chinese characters with a pen, greeting Bao and saying that he had gone to college. Included is a recent photo in the newspaper clipping of opera queen Calais. Read the letter. Understand, this is the 9th letter from my brother. If this letter was received by his parents, Po still knew nothing about it. Betty looked at her brother's photos very carefully. Betty said, "Hong Kong brother is not the look I will like in the future." Bao said, "Why?" Betty said, "I can like men in the future, but not now." Bao smiled. Betty said, "Brother Hong Kong has something on his mind." Bao said, "I can't see it." Betty said, "Sister Xuan also has Car's new record." Bao didn't make any sound. Xuan was a bourgeois girl in the alley, who was called a social youth at the time. After graduating from high school, it was difficult to go to college, and she rarely went out. Sometimes she invited male and female classmates to listen to music and dance. Every time she learned about this kind of activity, Betty went to watch the fun. That afternoon, the two of them arrived at Xuan's house and found that the stills on Calais' newspaper clipping were the same as Xuan's record sleeve. Xuan said, "Hong Kong is good, really good." Bao didn't make any sound. The curtains in the room were tightly closed, and the velvet-like singing voice of Carmen came from the phonograph. "La Mo, La Mo, La Mo, La Mo, La Mo, La Mo," echoing in the dim room. Betty walked around and turned around. Xuan said, "Mezzo-soprano, mezzo-soprano," now rising, rising all the time, rising to high notes. Turning to coloratura, Bao didn't make any sound. Xuan put down the letter and looked carefully at Brother Bao's photo. Xuan said, "Hong Kong brother," with thoughtful eyes. Betty said, "Cars. Must be Her Royal Highness the Princess." Xuan said that the temperament of Hepburn is that of Gregory Peck. "I watched the movie 3 times. I want to cry every time." Bao didn't make a sound. His heart was moved by the singing and inspired by the strange family affection. Xuan said, "Hong Kong is so great. Now, even if I get Calais records, I will still be in Shanghai." Bao didn't make any sound. Xuan said, "This group of friends of mine seem to know everything. Have everything. Eat well, wear well, have a bicycle brand that is either Sengen or Lanling. Listen to imported records, and listen to foreign radio stations. Be proud. You can compare with the outside world, and compare with Hong Kong." Betty said, "Okay." Xuan said, "If there is only one sock tube, there is no comparison. Shanghai is outdated, dead, over, and can no longer be discussed." Bao didn't make any sound. Xuan said, "Now we can only do this kind of boring dance secretly. Draw the thick curtains, and dance lightly. We can do a group dance. We can shout with joy. We can be happy. It's impossible. Everyone can participate, hand in hand." Everyone stamped their feet. The band was loud. Everyone rushed into the dance floor, singing, flying all over the place in unison. Champagne flew all over the place. Bare hair and shadows swayed back and forth, and the sound of jazz music made it enjoyable to dance the rumba. "Hey!" Bao didn't make any sound. Xuan said, "Everyone holds hands, jumps, spins, steps loudly, laughs loudly. Everyone claps in unison, happy." Bao didn't make any sound. Xuan was silent for a long time and said, "Hong Kong brother has a girlfriend." Bao said, "I will write to ask." Xuan said, I just asked casually. If my brother comes to Shanghai, a Bao will tell me, a Bao said. Definitely. Xuan was shy and silent. A Bao said that when brother gets a letter, sister should read it. Xuan said nothing. Betty came closer and said, "What are you talking about?" A Bao touched the back of Betty's neck and said, "I'm sweating. You can go back." A Bao stood up. Xuan said that she would come often in the future. A Bao agreed. The next day, a Bao's father came into the room, saw the photo under the glass plate, frowned and said, "There is a letter from Hong Kong." A Bao didn't make any sound. A Bao's father said, "No reply, just listen." A Bao said, "Yes." A month later, my brother wrote a letter, still written in traditional Chinese characters. "Hello, brother A Bao." I saw the reply and was very happy. I don't have a girlfriend yet, but I will in the future. When it comes to opera, Italian has rich pronunciation. The phonemes are A, E, I, 0, U, 5 vowels, 16 consonants, voice sounds, resonant nasal sounds, double consonants, and affricates. Is there a Chinese-Italian cram school in Shanghai? Are you parents okay? I used to listen to Hong Kong. My stepfather Rui lived in an area called Little Russia at the Ruijin intersection of Weihai Road in Shanghai. There was a billiard room next door to the former Belarusian Chailanan agency. During the Japanese occupation, it still published newspapers and was a place where information was traded among multiple parties. When Shin saw this, a Bao's father snatched it away, kneaded it into a ball, became furious, and made a Bao stand in a corner for an hour. Dad always had a bad temper, but after half an hour, he got better. He pulled a Bao over, touched a Bao's head and said, "Dad is upset. Don't look for trouble with Dad." A Bao is not worried. Callus's newspaper clippings have since been tucked into a book. Po has little interest in music, Italian, and billiard rooms. He listens to Betty playing Breeze and Clementi's sonata every day, which makes him feel upset. Every night, Bao's father seems to be doing accounting, but actually writing complaint materials. Bao passes by the study every night, and in front of the desk, he can see the back of his father writing. Dad said, "A Bao, go to Ruijin Road for Dad and buy a bottle of Shanghai dark beer," or "Go to Ruijin Road cigarette shop and buy a box of Panda pipe tobacco." Dad was a revolutionary youth who looked down on money and status and broke with his grandfather. Dad believes that only people with bourgeois backgrounds are true revolutionaries. They first started activities in Shanghai, then went to the northern Jiangsu base area for training, and then returned to Shanghai. After going through ups and downs, they waited for Shanghai to be liberated. They were happy for a few years, and were immediately reviewed and imprisoned 2 years later. He was released, deprived of all benefits, and arranged to work as an accountant in a grocery company. Once, grandfather touched Bao's shoulder and said, "Dad, how are you doing recently?" Bao said, "Okay." Grandfather said that if you have a revolutionary mind, you only see me once a year. Bao didn't make any sound. My grandfather said that when he drew a clear line with me, ran away, and cut off contact with me, he was like a bastard in a suit. He went to meetings every day. Later, he climbed into a Yangtze River ship and left without saying hello, Bao said. What happened later? Grandfather said, "I thought I had run into a bad road and became a Yangtze River brother." Bao said, "What?" Grandfather said that they were robbers who plied ships on the Yangtze River. Later, it was said that they were wrong and that they went to Jiangbai, Bao said. What happened later? Grandfather said, "Secretly cook the dishes, come back from Jiangbai, and then become Shanghai's spoiled brat, and join the revolution. You must first find a job, and you have to eat every day. It's not like what is said in the movie. There are funds and arrangements from above, and everything needs to be done. A young man with ideals who relies on his own family to make ends meet cannot even learn how to eat, so he can't carry out revolutionary work. Therefore, no matter how hungry he is, he has a smile on his face, a dress, and 3 or 2 coins in his trouser pocket. It's really pitiful." Bao didn't make any sound. My grandfather said that the highest ideal of the revolution was to do intelligence work and be an underground party member. Later, I was imprisoned in the Japanese prison, Wang Jingwei prison. and I brought 2 bottles of vitamins to see the fairy. A Bao said, "What?" Grandfather said that even when visiting the prison, the person was already skin and bones. He was released from prison for half a year, disappeared again, and went to revolution. A Bao said, "What happened later?" My grandfather said that he later married a Bao's mother, a girl from a landlord family in Zhejiang. She went to Hong Kong for a year, raised a daughter, and gave her away on the spot because she wanted to revolution. A Bao didn't make any sound. Grandfather said, "I have never understood. As for people, they still have to live on Gaonai Road in the French concession, which is now Gaolan Road. Speaking of it, they're still renting a house. Why not squat in the lower corner? Jabai is rolling, Penguin. Shanty houses, 3 bays and 1 alley in the west of Shanghai. Why don't we just go on strike as dock workers? Are we revolutionary? Eat beer and pipe tobacco." A Bao didn't make any sound. Grandfather said that after enduring hardships and being reformed, he had no status. It was good to think that he could only use an ordinary white wooden abacus to record to papyr soap accounts. He felt uneasy. A Bao didn't make any sound. The uncle next to me said, "Yes, yes, the revolution has come to an end. Let's distribute the fruits of the revolution with specific titles and status. We are empty-handed and have no boundaries at all." Grandfather rolled his eyes at the uncle and said, as the eldest brother, "What kind of things do you have in your belly?" The uncle was stunned and said, "What?" Grandfather said that back then, even if he went to the company branch, he would be a leader. A Bao said, "What?" Grandfather said it was the counting house. The uncle didn't make any sound. Grandfather said that if you do it step by step, do it slowly, and become the general leader, the head counter, it is equivalent to being a supervisor, and you will gain knowledge and come forward too. Deal with glutinous rice accounts and rotten rice accounts. A Bao said, "What?" The uncle said that it is to take business and receive various customers, good customers and bad customers. My grandfather said, "Humph, I dress well and look green every day. Look in the mirror, eat and look good. Put a set of leche wenzu in the room, and earn a penny." The uncle didn't make any sound. My grandfather said that to be a human being, of course one needs status. Sun Yat-sen and President Washington also need status. A Bao didn't make any sound. Grandfather said that being a man and doing a career, if you do it sincerely, you are usually in a dilemma. How embarrassing it is to be a human being. A Bao said, "Yes," Grandfather said. "Let's not talk about it anymore. Now, I am also embarrassed. I am embarrassed. God's will is not what I want. As long as I am careless, there will be consequences." A Bao said, "Yes," Grandfather said. "I just have a mouthful of old rice. Now, I can do whatever I have to do. I have nothing to do." In the past, most of the time in the afternoon, the car drove to Nanchang Road Kindergarten. Grandpa picked up a Bao, went for a drive, had snacks at the Chenghuang Temple, and then sent him back. A Bao Nying never mentioned it. When a Bao was a little older, he would sometimes go to Sinan Road and chat with his grandparents. My grandfather is already old. There used to be several large factories, a public-private partnership, and there was nothing to do. It was like working as an apartment owner and making public appearances. For example, the Federation of Industry and Commerce held meetings to study and asked the uncle to come forward. There is a fixed interest rate every month, and the expenses for a large family cannot be used up at all. Grandfather's only role is to control the silver box. Only this small area can be preserved as it is. Grandfather holds the key tightly and opens and closes it. In recent years, food has been tight. On the surface, in response to the planned rationing policy, I used my monthly vouchers to buy black flour, 6-grain flour, and potatoes, and asked Bigfoot to cook a pot of vegetable porridge and pumpkin gnocchi soup and pose. The 2 aunts took turns using the gas oven, placing a piece of dough in each small iron box, coating it with egg yolk, making a small bread crust, evenly sprinkling icing sugar, making plain cakes, grilled chicken breasts, curry rolls, fried eggs with bacon. Make your own clear salad. This big house consumes chicken, duck, fish, meat, eggs, etc., every week, which is the most in-demand commodity in the black market. Overseas relatives are constantly mailing food to Shanghai. The post office checks all the items and often withholds the excess. However, 10 pounds of rich noodles, macaroni, tomato sauce, cans of lard, butter, coffee, cocoa, and condensed milk can basically be collected. Arrive, popular TV in Shanghai, about around 1980. The TV broadcast time was in 1958. At first, there were only more than 300 TV sets in the city. In 1960, there was a Soviet tube TV set in the living room on Sinan Road. Once it broke down, the young man who came to repair it had a short mustache, a combed haircut, and short trousers. The grandfather paid the bill, and the young man took it and divided it into two, folded and stuffed it into the front and back pockets, so the pants are slimmer. Beside Abo, Yuli Tingting's cousins were reserved and curious. The young man explained the FM method, took out a piece of paper and told his cousin, "If anything happens in the future, please call me and see you later." At that time, there was only one TV channel, which was basically synchronized with the movie schedule. Not long after the first-round cinema posters of Cathay and Weihai came out, TV also started broadcasting. One day after dinner, Bao suggested that he should go to his classmate's room to refresh his classes. So he slipped into Sinan Road and found his grandfather alone in front of the TV. "Look around. Grandpa said that I lost my temper just now and the whole family was not allowed to watch TV. The living room is spacious, and behind every door, there seems to be someone listening carefully." It turned out that on this day, the uncle and his uncle each bought a floor-standing 14-lamp radio so that they could listen to international programs. When Bitch found out, she told her grandfather. The uncle's family took turns interceding, but my grandfather insisted on returning the goods. Bitch moved back to Sinan Road, and there were already a lot of conflicts. The uncle and his family were at odds over the size of the room and the quality of the furniture, so they suddenly moved in with an extra sister. The uncle gave up a room for Bitch to live in, and he was polite on the surface. "I hate it. My grandfather said that the bourgeoisie is indeed not decent. If I die early, Sinan Road will be depleted and ruined." Bao didn't make any sound. At this moment, on the TV, the black and white curtain moved, and a young man wearing a gray serge gown walked out. He smiled and spoke standard Shanghai's. "Shanghai TV, starts broadcasting now. Starts broadcasting now. Tonight's the show is..."
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.